Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to WeLearn on this beautiful Friday. Beautiful and hot, I must say, here. But summer is coming, and that's also part of the reason why I chose today's topic. Topic for today is about bird migration. And I said one of the reasons summer is coming, and the last couple of weeks we've been seeing new birds arriving in the area, birds that spent the winter elsewhere. And that's why I wanted just to focus a little bit on the topic of migration and just explain a little bit about it, how it goes, what causes it, how do birds migrate, just a couple of general things. And also near the end I have a couple of sound clips of very distinctive bird calls that you might start hearing around this time, so that you will recognize them afterwards. But as always, let me just quickly check sound levels. Maybe I must put it up a little bit higher. Yeah, that's just better, I think. Still a bit low, but okay. Anyway, let's start with last week's viewer challenge answer. Last week I asked you to name 3 birds. A couple of them were not too difficult, I think, and the last one was maybe a little bit of a tricky one, but I think most people even answered that one correct as well, so it wasn't too difficult. Just you need to have to look a little bit closer to the other ones. So let's quickly go through the 3 answers. The first one was a cattle egret. It's a pretty common bird and a very descriptive name, as you'll often see it close to herbivores, close to buffaloes, just picking up all the little scraps and pieces and the insects that get that come to the surface when animals are grazing, and of course with their excrements as well, that attracts a lot of flies and things. So that was a cattle egret. For people that have been in South Africa or watched nature movies, I think that shouldn't have been too difficult. Next, cattle egret. Okay. The next one is one of the hornbills, and it's by far the largest of the hornbills. It's also a bird that is almost flightless. It can fly a little bit up into a tree, but not over large distances. And it's also very threatened in a sense. It's on the IUCN Red Data list, which means that it's a bird that's in danger. Not necessarily directly of extinction, but it does have some problems with its range and habitat, and the numbers are dwindling. But it's a very beautiful bird, I believe. It's maybe an acquired taste. Some people find it ugly because of the red bare skin, but I think if you take a nice picture of it and stuff, it's actually quite a beautiful bird. And as I mentioned last time, I think, or maybe I didn't mention it, it has some quite interesting habits as well with regard to its nesting and procreation. But that's something for another WeLearn, where I'm going to talk a bit about nesting and bird eggs and things like that. That's maybe for a bit later in the season. First the birds have to migrate back to South Africa, and then we can start talking about young birds and eggs and all that kind of thing. And the third one was the one that was maybe a little bit tricky, because there is a kingfisher that looks quite similar. It's called the Malachite kingfisher, and that is much more common and much more well known. But this is an African pygmy kingfisher, and the differences with the Malachite kingfisher are quite small. It's about 1 centimeter smaller, but typically if you see it out in the bush or in the veld, you won't notice that unless you see them next to each other. What is very noticeable, I'll just go back to the big picture so you can see it better, is that see here above the eye, if you have a Malachite kingfisher, the bluish color, or malachite, I'm a bit colorblind, so I could just call it blue, goes all the way down to the eye, whereas with the African pygmy kingfisher, you'd have an orange rufous thick eyebrow over the eye. That is a very clear distinction between those two birds. The other thing is that the Malachite kingfisher is typically, because it's a fish-eating species, it's typically found around water, whereas the African pygmy kingfisher is a forest species. But that's always a bit of a tricky thing, because even though this looks like it's been taken in a forest, And there are of course trees about. This has been taken at the Lake Panic Bird Hide in Kruger Park near Skukuza. Just actually under the bird is water, so it's always a bit difficult to just by the habitat, especially if you have mixed habitats in one. My mouse was acting up a little bit here. If you have different habitats in one place. But the main distinguishing characteristic that if you can get a good look at it is the eyebrow color. That's the biggest giveaway, I would say, with regard to the difference between African pygmy kingfisher and malachite kingfisher. So yeah, with that and the kingfishers, let's move on to this week's topic. And in a way it's linked to last week. Last week we spoke a bit about a bird must eat and adaptations that birds made with regard to their diets and other things. And migration is also a lot about birds and how they eat. I'll just put this down completely because I hear a little bit of an echo. Because why would a bird invest all the effort and all the energy into migrating huge distances twice a year when it has everything that it needs in one place? Well, the thing is, it doesn't have everything in one place. In the tropics maybe there's food available the whole year, but especially if you go to the further north and further south, you have a very strong difference between winter and summer. And that means that while in summer food is available in abundance, in winter it might not be. Plus of course also there's the huge temperature difference. It gets very cold in winter, especially in the northern hemisphere. Very far up north it gets to freezing temperatures, which is also not which requires a lot of energy to live there as well. So again, but now you think, okay, with regard to the food, let's go back to the African pygmy kingfisher, maybe just as an example. African pygmy kingfisher is also a migrant. It means it migrates away during the year. It doesn't stay in one place. But now if you look at other kingfishers, it's not always the same, because for instance look at the giant kingfisher. Giant kingfisher is not a migrant, it stays in one place. Then you have the woodland kingfisher, we've been seeing it recently, so that's obviously also a migrant. It just came back into this area recently. And another thing, then the pied kingfisher doesn't migrate, it stays here all year. That's also why this one here has to look up and wait for the rain to end. But now, so why would one kingfisher, they're quite similar birds, migrate and others not? I'll just go back to the pygmy kingfisher quickly. And then let's think about what is the diet of these kingfishers. The pygmy kingfisher is mainly an insect eater. Now, and it migrates. The giant kingfisher eats mostly fish, doesn't migrate. Woodland kingfisher, again, mainly insect eater, eats other things as well, but insect is a huge part of its diet. Pied kingfisher, fish eater, doesn't migrate. So you already can see the start of a pattern developing between the diet of the bird, the food of the bird, and whether it migrates or not. If you think about it, in summer especially, and we find it here as well, insects are very abundant, especially the flying insects. But in winter, they completely disappear, or almost completely disappear. So that means the bird would starve, or at least have difficulty getting enough food. With the way the Earth is developed, when it is winter in one area, in the northern hemisphere, then it's going to be summer. So there's always summer there. So there's an advantage for birds to migrate to areas, actually follow the food in that sense. When you have the fish eaters, the fish will be around all year, so there's no need for them to migrate. But if you're feeding mostly on insects, or as a lot of the shorebirds or waders on the small invertebrates that live on the coastline, which also are much more abundant in summer, then if you want to optimize your breeding success and actually your overall success, then you need to follow the food source. And that is why a lot of birds have started migrating, or migration has evolved. So again, it's all about food and fuel and energy. It's not just a human society that everything turns around energy. It's in the bird and animal world as well.